Welcome to This Is Why I Don't Vote, a podcast where we will think critically, not cynically, about sports, politics, religion, the social issues of the day. Without further ado.
Act 1, Deshaun Watson.
Oh, he's guilty. Guilty as hell. For the uninformed, Deshaun Watson is the quarterback for the Houston Texans, the NFL franchise. Watson has been accused in a lawsuit, mind you, by 22 different women. To repeat, has been accused in a lawsuit by 22, that's 1, 2, and then another 2 next to it, signifying double digits. 22 different women that he sexually assaulted them during a massage. Sexual assault may be too strong a term, but it was unwanted sexual contact at the very least. For more detail, consult your local Google machine. Now, these stories generally center on the accusations and the accusers, and we move from the mental foundation of the accusations to then examining the accusers. Let's perform a different mental exercise, dear listener. Let's start with the foundation of the athlete and the circumstances underlying the accusations. Once we have done so, the situation becomes much clearer. In thinking critically, not cynically, what we can also do is take out a number of the known variables, the person, the team, the city, and we can create a blank canvas and move from there towards the truth. So how are we going to do that? Well, let's start by laying the foundation and adding layers from there rather than starting from the accusations and unpeeling the layers from the point of the accusations. So what are the underlying foundations? What if I told you that this story involved a marquee NFL athlete? That's the first layer, that the story involves a marquee NFL athlete. The second layer of that story would be not only is it a marquee NFL athlete, that this marquee NFL athlete has a salary in the top 5 of the highest paid players in the league. Not the top 5%, that this marquee athlete is within the top 5 highest paid players in the entire league. Regardless if you are an NFL fan or not, regardless of whether or not you're male or female, regardless of your political persuasion, you begin to get a picture of who this person is. Marquee NFL athlete, one of the highest paid players in the entire league. Now, what if I threw in the third layer, the third variable? That this marquee NFL athlete, one of the highest paid players in the league, was looking for masseuses. Nothing nefarious there, right? This person is in an occupation that is dangerous, that is physical. Without knowing the position of that player, you understand, by the very nature of the business, this person has to be in top physical condition week in and week out. A masseuse is one of probably many mechanisms that these athletes use in order to stay healthy at tip-top shape week in and week out during and probably even after an NFL season. How about the next layer? The next layer being that this marquee NFL athlete with a salary, not in the top 5%, mind you, but he's one of the top 5 highest paid players in the league, is looking for masseuses on Instagram. Here's the first pause in the story, based on the facts as I've laid them out so far. Even for the casual NFL fan, even for the casual pro sports fan, one can imagine that a marquee NFL athlete with a salary in the top 5, the highest paid players in the league, is going to have a number of resources available to them in order to find professional services, particularly professional services specifically oriented towards their NFL playing career. Each NFL franchise very likely has its own highly trained professional medical staff. The league has resources available to all athletes, I'm sure, but particularly to those marquee athletes, particularly to those that are being paid in the top 5 or the top 10 highest paid players in the league. The NFL Players Association very likely has resources for all of its members, specific to medical professionals, medical services. Yet this marquee NFL athlete, again, marquee NFL athlete, a public figure, someone who is known, is looking for masseuses, not by getting a referral from a team doctor, not by getting a referral from someone in the league office or someone from the Players Association. This athlete is looking for masseuses by way of Instagram. I'm an old man. I don't understand the technologies. I don't understand the social mediums. But I do understand that a lot of entrepreneurs are now using social media outlets to market themselves in a very densely populated marketplace for different types of professional services. So Instagram isn't all about what you fed your cat for dinner. Instagram isn't all about that dumbass dance you did on TikTok that you're trying to reproduce on as many mediums as you can. Instagram is also about you marketing your professional services. Hey, I have a cat. I feed it this crap. Look at this stupid ass dance that I did. Oh, and by the way, I happen to be a cosmetologist. I happen to be a masseuse. For the younger generations, they may gravitate to this. This may be the way they actually go about looking for professional services instead of the tried and true methodology of asking for a referral. At this point in the story, raised eyebrow, not that big a deal, right? Let's add the next layer to the story. Over the course of the last approximately 30 months, this marquee NFL athlete with a salary in the top 5 highest paid players who's looking for masseuses on Instagram schedules appointments with and has at least 40 different masseuses give him a massage. Wait, what? What was that again? 40 different masseuses over the course of approximately 30 months to give him a massage. Let's stop the story here. Again, no matter your fandom when it comes to professional or collegiate sports, no matter your gender, religion, political persuasion, we all have one thing in common. At some point in our life, we had hair. That's right. We had hair and we had to do something with it. It grows, it needs to be managed. Male or female, answer me this, dear listener. When you went to a hairstylist, a hairdresser, and got the perfect cut, got the perfect styling, did you say to yourself, that was great. I can't wait to go to the next hairdresser, the next stylist, and see what they can do? No. You went back to that same person and you had them style, cut, address your hair over and over and over again. In fact, many people, when asked, will attest to the fact that the person who currently cuts, styles, addresses their hair has been doing so for years on end. Now, when you hear a story about a marquee NFL athlete with a salary in the top 5 highest paid players looking for masseuses, I think our minds reasonably conclude that this is medicinal in nature, that this is actually, for a professional athlete, part of the recuperative process, getting ready for the next game, getting ready for the next contest. As much as that athlete might be taking pleasure from the massage, it's also a necessary element for that athlete to be relaxed, to be ready for the next week. So without any other information, a marquee NFL athlete with a salary in the top 5 highest paid players in the league looking for masseuses on Instagram and scheduling appointments with at least 40 different masseuses over the course of a 30-month period, those facts alone qualify this to be in the what the hell is going on here category. Not that there's anything nefarious yet, but certainly what the hell is going on here. I think even again, casual fans recognize that most of these marquee athletes have a dedicated staff, trainers, masseuses, dietitians, doctors, that they rely on in order to get them ready not only for a season, but for each game within a season. Very, very curious. What if I add on another layer? That layer being that many of the women that this marquee NFL athlete, whose salary is in the top 5 highest paid players, were not actually masseuses, and stated as much in direct messages with this athlete. Many women communicated that A, they may be training to become a masseuse, but have not yet finished their qualifications, their certifications. But other women actually stated, I'm not even in training to become a masseuse. I'm a cosmetologist. I'm an esthetician. And that marquee NFL athlete, whose salary is in the top 5 highest paid players, stated back to them, well, can you give me a massage anyway? Based on this next layer, let's stop and let's evaluate the story as it's been set forth. What reasonable conclusion can be drawn from the story as it's been set forth to this point? And again, you don't have to be a huge NFL fan. You don't have to be a man or a woman. It doesn't matter on your age or your religion. What is a reasonable conclusion to be drawn from this story based on the facts as they've been set forth at this juncture? This guy's looking to have sex. This guy is fishing Instagram for attractive women that he can meet by way of their profession. Am I wrong, dear listener? Is this not the reasonable conclusion to be drawn based on the facts as we've set them forth thus far? I think not. And based on the facts as they've been set forth thus far, there's nothing illegal about it. Is it disingenuous? Yes. Is it somewhat scummy? Well, let's just go and call it what it is. It's actually pretty scummy. But certainly the layers as they've been set forth do not rise to illegality. But what if I throw on another layer? And that layer being that several of the women admitted to having a consensual sexual relationship with this marquee NFL athlete. Now let's stop right here and evaluate. What's going on in your head? It's the same thing that's going on in my head. You've got a picture of George W. Bush standing on an aircraft carrier with a huge poster behind him. Mission accomplished. Man employs strategy successfully. News at 11. Marquee NFL athlete with a salary in the top 5 highest paid players. Looking for masseuses on Instagram, of course. Scheduled appointments with at least 40 different masseuses. Received 40 different massages over a roughly 30-month period. Not all the women were actual masseuses. And several women admitted to having a consensual sexual relationship with that marquee NFL athlete. Would some call this morally or ethically abhorrent? Sure. I'm not sure I disagree with them. As much as we want to believe that women throw themselves at athletes, I think what we've seen over the course of at least the last decade is how athletes themselves orchestrate these situations. Prime example, Tiger Woods. Tiger Woods had a whole infrastructure of people around him setting up, coordinating, managing sexual liaisons. The key term here is consensual. As I've laid that story out to you, although it may be ethically or morally abhorrent, there's nothing illegal about it. As I've laid that story out for you, starting from the bottom, starting from the foundation and adding the layers up, do any of us actually believe that this marquee NFL athlete with a salary in the top 5 highest paid players was simply looking for masseuses for therapeutic, for medicinal reasons. No, not at all. Here's a marquee athlete that might not have the coterie to go out, like Tiger Woods did, to coordinate these sexual liaisons. He's using Instagram as a medium to accomplish as much. So let's add the final layer. And again, I will add the layer in a manner whereby it doesn't matter your fandom, it doesn't matter your age or your gender or your race or your religion. We can all relate to the actual circumstances surrounding what really happened between Deshaun Watson and these masseuses. The accusations are strikingly similar. Basically, secluded room during the course of a massage, penis exposed, some sort of gyration with sexual intent. Harken back, dear listener, to the fact that there are several women that admitted to having a consensual sexual relationship with Deshaun Watson in these environments. Was he wooing these women with his charm? Was he seducing them with witty repartee? No, he's sitting on a massage table. He simply takes off his towel or sheet and whips his dick out. That's where I want to stop. That's what I want to focus on. That's a bold move. That's a bold move. Let's be clear. When you do that, you're all in. It's one thing or another. One thing it can be is the first overture in a consensual sexual relationship. But the other thing it can be is sexual assault. Unwanted sexual contact. Every time it worked, it worked. Every time it didn't work, it was a crime. Again, starting from the foundation, building up to where we are now. None of us truly believes that Deshaun Watson, with the money and the resources that he had available to him, was looking for masseuses for therapeutic or medicinal purposes, particularly through Instagram, particularly where some of that outreach was to women who weren't even masseuses, where that wasn't even the benchmark for trying to get, quote unquote, the massage. It's hard to speculate what is in another person's mind. But think about this, dear listener. Let's say, for the sake of argument, that Watson had done this in his past and it worked. Whether it be with a masseuse that he met on Instagram, or women in a college setting, or women who were at a party, he did this. He just pulled his pants down, pulled out his penis, and it actually worked. That wasn't a blessing. He had just been lucky. He had just found a cleat chaser or a social climber with low self-esteem that wanted to be able to say, I had sex with Deshaun Watson. His success was not a blessing, but a curse, because he's not going to run into a cleat chaser, a social climber, every time he pulls that stunt. And yes, dear listener, he's pulled that stunt more than once. Like Ray Caruth, you've seen Deshaun Watson play his last down of football. He will not be able to Ray Lewis his way out of this.
Act 2 Sports.
Bernie Madoff, who managed the largest Ponzi scheme in human history, died in prison. The man ruined millions of lives. No other way to say it. Ruined millions of lives. But 3 of the lives that he did not ruin were the Wilpons' lives and Saul Katz, the owners of the New York Mets. No, I do not subscribe to this revisionist history that many a Mets fan is putting forth on social media, posting on articles about Madoff, on blog posts, and the like. Many Mets fans identify the crippling of that team with Bernie Madoff. Madoff straight lied to a number of people. A number of people had money invested in funds, having no idea that those funds were heavily invested with Bernie Madoff. All of these people, you can argue, got screwed. The people who did not get screwed were the Wilpons and Saul Katz. You see in many of these blog posts, these social media posts, very, very tepid, revisionist history style comments specific to how much money the Wilpons had invested in the Ponzi scheme, how much money they had to pay back to the trustee after the Ponzi scheme collapsed, and what that did to the team, the New York Metropolitans. But what you don't see, what is not routinely put out there in the public sphere, on social media, on posts specific to any article, is a recitation of the allegations made by the trustee against specifically the Wilpons and Saul Katz. As always, if you'd like more detail, consult your local Google machine. In summary, the trustee, after reviewing all the documentation and the transactions that the Wilpons engaged in, the money that changed hands, the closeness of the relationship, and the sophistication of the parties, the trustee came to the conclusion that the Wilpons knew or should have known that this was a Ponzi scheme. Again, knew or should have known Ponzi scheme. For anyone out there who's not familiar with legal parlance or not part of the legal community, let me summarize what that actually means. Knew or should have known simply means, would you rather be known as a liar or as a fool? The dunce cap is going on your head. Yes, that stool in the corner is for you. Would you like the dunce cap that says liar? Or would you like the dunce cap that says fool? You either knew, liar, that this was a Ponzi scheme and you continued to engage in it for your own benefit, or you should have known, fool, given the nature of these transactions and your sophistication as a billionaire. To repeat, millions of people were in fact swindled by Bernie Madoff. I can't sit here and rattle off any of their names. What I can do is rattle off the names of people that I know were not swindled by Bernie Madoff. Those would be the Wilpons and Saul Katz. They knew, liars, or should have known, fools, that this was a Ponzi scheme and that it would all end in tears. Because we are adults and we realize that the concept of justice is really just a myth, that karma sounds good, but in practice is bullshit, the Wilpons and Saul Katz eventually sold the New York Metropolitans for $3.5 billion, walking away with billions, plural, I'll say that again for force and effect, billions of dollars. Vilify the name of Bernie Madoff if you must. I, for my part, will always have on the back of my palette Wilpons, Saul Katz.
Act 3 More Sports.
Be careful what you wish for, because you just might get it. The University of Tennessee basketball program has just landed another 5-star recruit, along with the kid who had committed to Marquette and is now going to come to Tennessee. I believe Tennessee has 2 5-star prospects in the 2021 recruiting class and an aggregate number, I think it's 4 or 5 top 100 recruits in this one class. Tennessee fan is naturally gushing on social media about how good the team is going to be, how successful the team can be in the 2021-2022 season. As fans, obviously, we want what we want when we want it, and we don't want there to be any consequences for the things that we want that we eventually get. That certainly isn't limited to sports, but that certainly does define the nature of the fan. For those of you listening that may not be college basketball fans in general, sports fan in general, you're going to be able to relate to this segment because many of you have children. In prior segments, I made comments about the Tennessee basketball team and even the Kentucky basketball team on how it appeared that the only thing that they knew about basketball was that the ball was round. That is an unfortunate product of youth. To provide some limited but further background into how sports operates, these kids are dissected like lab specimens over the course of their high school careers in order to render a ranking. We just can't help ourselves. We just can't help ourselves. We loves us some rankings. Whether these are objective rankings based on some standardized test or subjective rankings based on an athlete's skill set determined by so-called experts, but for all intents and purposes, experts only by their own qualification and maybe the qualification of the sports outlet that they write for. We the fandom, we want to see these rankings. And then we want to gloat if we can get these kids who are so highly ranked in college football, in college basketball, even in baseball, to come to our schools. Although highly touted, although no doubt talented, these are but children. Given that many of my listeners are in fact parents, you understand the nature of children. These are stupid human beings. Now don't go get all emotional on me. And in your mind, picture the one or the two or the three that you created. No, we're thinking critically here, not cynically. You've seen what they're capable of. I have no doubt that they have done things to make you as parents immensely proud. I personally couldn't point to anything. I don't have any specific reference to make, but generally, I have no doubt that each and every one of your children has done something at some point to make you proud. Having been a child, I know that each and every one of them has done something to make you want to hit them with a frying pan. Immature, pre-developed human does something stupid. I'm not breaking news to any one of you, am I? So in the context of sports recruiting, in the context of these highly ranked athletes, we get excited based on some arbitrary numerical assignment of value to a 17, 18, or 19-year-old. If they are everything that we think they can be, many of them, particular to college basketball, are simply going to play at the university for one season. They're only going to be there one season. Even the casual sports fan understands the dynamic between college sports and professional sports. You're playing college for free as much as any athletic director or any university administrator, or of course anyone who works for the NCAA would like you to believe. You're not going there for an education. You're going there with the aspiration that you're going to go pro and you're going to make millions of dollars. The University of Kentucky basketball team is the primary example of this. Kids who are going to the university in order to play in the NBA. They want to go to a marquee program with a head coach that has a track record of successfully placing kids into the NBA after one or two seasons, more often than not as top 10 draft picks. They could give a damn about the education. Frankly, this doesn't bother me. This is fine. But what I do expect after this season of Tennessee basketball, where Tennessee had two top 5 prospects who both thought that they were capable of being one and done players, and then watching that team over a course of the season, I do expect to yell profanities at my television watching highly touted, very talented 18-year-olds fail to take round ball and place it into round hole. Yes, the University of Tennessee is now recruiting at a high level, at a top 10 level. You could even argue at a top 5 level. There are a limited number of schools that can actually point to the number of 5-star prospects that were one and done, that played 1 year in college and then went to the NBA. It is hard not to be excited when you see those types of rankings associated with the school that you attended, that you root for. But, along with that, you have to have a sense of perspective. These are children. Children are stupid. Accordingly, you can expect these children are going to do stupid things over the course of a basketball season. You hope there's going to be a generational talent amongst the group, that maybe one of them will far exceed any type of expectation and play at the level of a senior or someone who is capable of playing in the NBA while they're in college. What is more likely is that you'll see on one play a kid make an extremely athletic, versatile move to the basket and finish beautifully, and then the next play dribble off his foot or his ass because he's 18 years old and doesn't know his left from his right. I'm encouraged, but I'm trying to be balanced and reasoned in my excitement. Will anything I just said weigh upon my emotional scale when I watch said 18-year-old dribble ball off his ass? Of course not. Of course not. I am a fan. I will scream at my television, "Learn to dribble the ball, son. Fundamentals." Like any cantankerous old man would. I want what I want when I want it, and I don't want there to be any consequences to befall me when I get it. This is why I don't vote. A podcast.